The Kenya Red Cross Society, 60 years of service to humanity. The flutter of the Kenya Red Cross emblem white flag with a red cross and the blaring sirens of its ambulances and the sight of its staff donning the renowned red jackets and distinct badges or insignia signal the embracing of people who care, a special squad of rescuers. In and out of every disaster Kenya has witnessed, on every footage and picture short of the gory scenes, has been the unmissable presence of Kenya Red Cross staff at work, saving lives, numbing pain, stopping blood loss, mending fractures, and wheeling the victims to hospitals, then returning to feed and care for the survivors. But where did the Kenya Red Cross story begin? What keeps its heartbeat running and enduring memories of its work stubbornly inerasable in the Kenyan mind? It goes back to 1965, when Parliament passed the Kenya Red Cross Society Act No. 29 of 1965, which came into effect on 21st December 1965. The Act effectively hewed Kenya Red Cross from the stone of the British Red Cross, which was associated with the colonial government from which Kenya broke free in 1963. But in walking on the footprints of Kenya Red Cross, we first need to walk back in time to an incident of war in Italy, specifically Solferino, when a young Swiss man named Jean Henry Dunant witnessed unimaginable suffering and sparked a movement that will change the face of humanity forever. Here then lies the anchor of Red Cross and Red Crescent societies all over the world, to which Kenya Red Cross is a family member. During World War II, volunteers in Kenya worked under the British Red Cross, tending to wounded soldiers and displaced communities. By 1940, an independent Kenya branch was born, training caregivers, running hospitals, and offering relief in times of war and famine. Through the turbulence of the Mau Mau emergency, through independence, and through the birth of a new nation, the Red Cross emblem stood firm across detention camps, blood banks, and villages torn by conflict. The Kenya Red Cross Society has stood at the front lines of every major crisis that shaped the nation. From famine to floods, conflict to recovery, always there, always ready. The journey to an independent Kenya Red Cross was far from easy. In the 1950s, Africans were only allowed limited roles under the British Red Cross, often as junior members with little say. Pioneers like Dedan Githegi, Rachel Muzera, and Charles Rubier broke those barriers, pushing against discrimination and colonial resistance. Their persistence turned a once inclusive colonial society into a truly national humanitarian movement. Built on equality, courage, and the belief that humanity knows no color. This is not just a story of an organization. It is a story of humanity in motion, a journey of courage, compassion, and resilience written by thousands of volunteers and lived by millions of Kenyans. It is also a journey that reflects the Red Cross's growth in capacity, diversity, and resilience, evolving from a modest presence to 60 years later, a nationwide network with a footprint in every corner of the country. From the shadows of colonial rule, a new dawn emerges. A people reclaiming their destiny. A nation rising to govern itself, guided by the promise of freedom, unity, and progress. Amid this transformation, a quiet humanitarian revolution unfolded. The British Red Cross branch in Kenya began evolving into a national society under Rachel Muzera, the first African director, and Charles Rubier, the founding president, charting a new path as a truly Kenyan institution.
In 1964, when it became independent, I was appointed as a Secretary General for Kenya Red Cross Society, and I worked there for 7 years. It was difficult those days, by the way, difficult because the organization was not really known by our Kenyan people. It was a voluntary organization, and to get people to volunteer their services and their money, it was very, very difficult indeed. Okay. However, we managed, and during those days, I mean, we had a lot of European volunteers, some Asian volunteers, and a few Africans. And I don't really blame them at all, because you see, volunteering your time, your money. They didn't have that kind of cash, they didn't have the money, and the time was specifically for, their work. So, but we did manage.
When many institutions in Kenya did not have women leaders, Kenya Red Cross was led by a woman, and it's Rachel Mzera. And people, I think we underestimate the impact of that. We underestimate the impact of how in 1965 a national institution was led by a woman who was competent and got the responsibilities based on her competence. And she went on to provide excellent leadership for many years.
The new leadership called for Africans to fill positions left by the departing Europeans. In Parliament, Joseph Otiende, then Minister for Health and Housing, tabled a historic bill that will give birth to the Kenya Red Cross Society. In November 1965, Parliament passed the Kenya Red Cross Society Act number 29 of 1965, which came into effect on 21st December 1965. Its mandate was rooted on the international humanitarian doctrine of alleviating suffering and upholding human dignity across the new nation. But its birth came amid turmoil. Kenya faced one of its worst famines, with arid lands and displaced families crying out for relief. In the north, the Shifter War of 1963 intensified the need for humanitarian intervention. The Kenya Red Cross was born into crisis and immediately called to serve. On 3rd November 1966, the society gained full recognition as an independent national society, and a year later, it was admitted as the 107th member of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. By 1969, the young society was already transforming lives, supporting children orphaned by war at the Dagoretti Children's Center and pioneering community empowerment through the Kirathimo Model Village in Limuru, a bold experiment that sowed the seeds of self-reliance. From that moment, the society stood as an independent humanitarian organization, auxiliary to the government in service to humanity. The 1970s ushered in a decade of challenge and growth for the Kenya Red Cross Society under the leadership of J.K. Mulei. Across northern Kenya, from Turkana, Marsabit, Isiolo to Wajir, the land lay bare and cracked under a relentless sun. Rivers had long dried up, and livestock, the lifeblood of pastoral communities, perished by thousands. Kenya Red Cross responded, extended a helping hand, and walked the rough terrain with them, a constant companion imbued with compassion. Barely 5 years after its founding, the Kenya Red Cross Society faced its first national emergency. With little government support, it led independent relief efforts and made its first international appeal for aid. The crisis exposed the fragility of life in arid regions but became a turning point, strengthening the society's capacity and shaping its future humanitarian role. By 1973, the society aligns its structure with the global Red Cross movement, replacing political titles like president and vice president with governor and deputy governor, reflecting neutrality, independence, and a purely humanitarian identity. From 1973 to 1980, the late Nobel laureate Professor Wangari Maathai served as a director of the Kenya Red Cross. She was among the first to connect environmental degradation to poverty, hunger, and conflict. Her visionary leadership infused humanitarian work with environmental awareness, leading Kenya Red Cross Society to promote tree planting, sustainable land use, and community-driven water projects as part of its relief and recovery efforts.
We have just come out of a prolonged drought, almost 3 years of no rain, crop failure. We saw literally carcasses of wildlife, domestic animals, littering the landscapes. We saw rivers drying up. If we don't do anything, these things can only accelerate.
By 1975, the Kenya Red Cross Society was no longer a small, centralized institution. In just a decade since its founding, it had grown from 9 branches to 45, extending its humanitarian reach across nearly every corner of the country. Political turmoil in Uganda under Idi Amin displaced thousands of people. In 1977, Kenya Red Cross Society launched its first refugee relief operation, sending volunteers and resources to the western border. The society set up reception centers, provided food, clothing and medical care, and worked with the government and United High Commission of Refugees to ensure safe and dignified shelter. This marked Kenya Red Cross Society's first regional humanitarian intervention beyond domestic emergencies. In 1978, Kenya experienced a major national transition with the death of President Jomo Kenyatta, with his vice, Daniel Arap Moi, taking over and in the line of the Red Cross Constitution becoming the society's next patron. Amid these challenges, Kenya Red Cross strengthened its institutional capacity, improving coordination, accountability, and resource mobilization. The decade saw its workforce professionalize and operational standards take shape, fostering a culture of trust, reliability, professionalism, laying the foundation for what would become one of Africa's most respected humanitarian institutions. The 1980s began as a decade of turbulence and institutional growth. Under the leadership of Mr. Ephraim Gadeya, who would guide the organization for more than 2 decades. Kenya faced a devastating wave of drought and famine in its arid and semi-arid regions. The 1984 and 1985 crises left millions in urgent need, with pastoralists losing entire herds, lands turning barren, and families displaced.
Through the board and our supporters through the Federation, we are able to react to a number of areas. I can only give 1 or 2 examples. We went up to Marsabit, and we were able to raise through the Federation quite enough money to buy the food. And it's also another area we observed we have moved more compared to the other 80s, whereby we are able to move more outside Nairobi, because before the name was there up country, but they are not seeing a lot of action by the Red Cross.
Conflicts in Garissa and the tragic Wagala massacre in Wajir aggravated suffering and instability.
Because we have already brought up the National Society presence in Garissa and other areas, the reaction we did, regardless of the problem we went through, unfortunately we were not allowed to go to Wagara, for example, but we had already created a name in those areas. People have seen the Red Cross on the ground, and that made us easier work after that. We are able now to include other programs related to the development. And also, it made us work with conjunction of other NGOs, which were still on the ground. And one of them, the main one was the Catholic Church, which was very supportive. 2, AMREF were also involved.
Through it all, the Red Cross emblem remained a steadfast symbol of neutrality, compassion, and hope. In 1986, the Society convened government departments and non-governmental organizations under a common banner, aligning toward a national disaster preparedness plan.
Within our disaster preparedness development, we wanted to train people locally who can support us, because you cannot run those programs from the headquarters, whether it's a national society or at a branch society. So we wanted to build a team, or what I might be, I can call ground soldiers, who would be available to assist before the national office or the nearest county office reach there. This was our main aim, to make sure or to see that Kenya Red Cross is seen on the ground.
This marked a pivotal moment. The society was not simply responding to crisis, but shaping systems of coordination and readiness. Amid the changing political and humanitarian landscape, Kenya Red Cross Society expanded its mandate beyond food relief and emergency response to include health outreach and disease prevention. As the HIV and AIDS pandemic emerged globally, the Society took early and proactive steps in awareness and prevention, playing a pivotal role in creating the Crush HIV and AIDS awareness symbol and leading community sensitization efforts, a role it upholds to this day.
HIV AIDS also, the national got involved a lot, and we started HIV training to the grassroots workers, to the middle people in the government, so that they can be the first, because nobody was in the front. And to explain to people, although HIV is there, we have to live with it. I think we started quite a long time ago. And you remember the sign, that you remember, I don't know whether you still use this symbol, and it was Crush AIDS.
In parallel, Kenya Red Cross reinforced its institutional identity. Having already aligned governance titles and structures in the previous decade, the 1980s saw further consolidation, stronger branch networks, deeper volunteer growth, and enhanced collaboration with the government. The society matured from an ad hoc relief provider to a trusted national humanitarian institution. The 1990s ushered in a new chapter for Kenya: multi-party democracy. The Kenya Red Cross Society found itself at the center of some of the most defining moments of the decade. Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia boldly challenged Kenya's one-party system, demanding political reforms and the return of multi-party democracy. Their call resonated across the country, inspiring hope for change but also provoking a swift and harsh response from the government. Both leaders were arrested and detained, an act that became a defining moment in Kenya's journey toward political freedom. Amid the heightened political tensions, the Kenya Red Cross Society found itself affected by the shifting government stance. Its funding from the state was withdrawn as the humanitarian organization was caught in the uncertainty of the time. For decades, the society continued its life-saving work through the support of partners and the goodwill of Kenyans until the government funding was finally reinstated in 2023, marking the restoration of a long-delayed partnership.
The late 70s and the 80s, Kenya Red Cross was easily seen by the government as part and parcel of the opposition politics of the country, which reminds us and reminds future generations on why one of the principles of this organization is to steer away from political controversy. And that is so that in the interest of those who we serve, we have access to everyone, irrespective of political opinion, race, religion.
When Somalia collapsed in 1991, waves of refugees crossed into Kenya, seeking safety and survival. Together with the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, mounted one of Africa's largest humanitarian operations. Refugee camps sprang up in Utange, Marafa, Swalenguru, and Hatimi in the coast region, safe havens in the midst of crisis. But as the refugee emergency unfolded, another disaster struck close to home. Between 1992 and 1994, northeastern Kenya faced a prolonged and devastating drought. The Kenya Red Cross Society led major relief efforts alongside the government, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, and United Nations agencies delivering food, water, and hope to communities on the brink. Then came the tribal clashes in the Molo district of Nakuru in 1991. Families were displaced, homes destroyed, and lives lost. Once again, the Kenya Red Cross Society teams were on the ground responding, comforting, and rebuilding. The unrest flared again on June 9, 1998, when parts of Rift Valley were engulfed with politically motivated violence following the December 1997 elections. Just months later, tragedy struck at the heart of the capital. On August 7, 1998, the US Embassy in Nairobi was bombed, a moment that shook the nation to its core. Amid chaos and destruction, the Kenya Red Cross Society volunteers rushed to the scene. They dug through the rubble, organized blood drives, and comforted the wounded and bereaved. Over 200 lives were lost, but the spirit of humanity endured. As the decade drew to a close, the Kenya Red Cross Society adopted its 1999 to 2004 strategic plan, a blueprint for strengthening its reach through a new era of decentralization. It reflected lessons learned and renewed commitment to serve no matter the challenge, no matter the cost.
We implemented food security programs that looked at the longer-term needs of the community and how to address the incidences of food insecurity, so thereby introducing systems that would utilize the natural resources such as proper water management to integrate additional agricultural activities, even within the livelihoods that were mostly pastoralists.
The dawn of the new millennium brought both promise and pain. In 2000, Kenya was gripped by a severe drought that left over 4 million people food insecure. It was a test not only for the nation, but also for the Kenya Red Cross Society. The organization faced its own internal crisis. As resources ran dry, debts soared to over 23 million shillings, donor support dwindled, and staff morale plummeted. The proud humanitarian institution was at a crossroads. This led to the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies and the International Committee of Red Cross Support and the secondment and appointment of Dr. Abbas Gullet in 2001 to lead institutional reforms and financial recovery. Dr. Gullet assumed leadership as Secretary General with Paul Birech as Governor, ushering in a new era of transformation, professionalism, and renewed credibility. Under their stewardship, the Kenya Red Cross Society embraced modern technology, decentralization, and regional empowerment, laying the foundation for a more responsive and resilient institution. Dr. Abbas Gullet went on to be the longest-serving Secretary General to date. Tragedy would once again test the nation's spirit. In March 2001, the Kianguli Secondary School fire claimed 59 young lives. 3 years later, in 2005, the Turbi massacre in Marsabit shattered communities. Armed conflict between rival clans left over 80 people dead, most of them children, and displaced more than 6,000. The Kenya Red Cross Society mounted responses, bringing relief, dignity, and hope to survivors. In 2002, Kenya held a historic presidential and general election that marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. Mwai Kibaki became Kenya's third president, and with that, the new patron of the Kenya Red Cross Society. The 2007-2008 post-election violence remains one of Kenya's darkest chapters. As communities burned and families fled, the Kenya Red Cross Society became the nation's lifeline. Its swift and coordinated response saved thousands. Volunteers provided food, shelter, and medical care, traced and reunited separated families, and brought hope to those displaced by fear and conflict. Amid the turmoil, the government appointed the Kenya Red Cross Society as the lead agency for the national emergency response, a historic mark of trust and capability.
The motivation was to lead by example. So I said, well, I'm the CEO, I'm the Secretary General, we go out. I drive the fast car, you guys follow me up. And nothing would happen to you. And we will stand up and talk to those powers be, whether it's the police or the vigilante group that may then question us, and we have to go out and be seen.
By 2009, Kenya stood proud on the global humanitarian stage. The International Red Cross General Assembly convened in Nairobi, a first for the region. During the assembly, the Kenya Red Cross Society Governor Paul Birech was elected Vice President of the International Federation of Kenya Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies for Africa, a recognition of Kenya's growing leadership in the humanitarian service. That same year, tragedy struck once again. The Nakumatt fire in downtown Nairobi claimed lives and left many injured. The Kenya Red Cross Society volunteers worked tirelessly in recovery, tracing, and counseling, a reflection of their unwavering commitment to humanity. As the decade closed, yet another catastrophe hit. A fuel tanker explosion at the Sachangwan on the Nakuru-Eldoret highway, killing 140 people and severely injured more than 230 others. The images of the disaster were haunting. The Kenya Red Cross was there, standing with survivors through pain and recovery.
Sijawahi kuona maishani mwangu vile watu wamechomeka, sijawahi kuona na tumestuka sana, hata sijui vile nitaweza kusema, tunasema pole kabisa. Wajini nimeona hata hii ni kama imeshinda ya Nakumatt. Imeshinda kabisa.
Soon after, Kenya was hit by the worst drought in over 60 years, threatening over 5 million lives. In response, the Kenya Red Cross Society joined forces with corporate partners, the Media Owners Association, and other organizations to launch the Kenyans for Kenya initiative, a powerful act of solidarity that mobilized the nation. Millions were fed, communities rebuilt, and a country rediscovered the strength of its unity.
You, the ordinary Mwananchi, has contributed 61 million shillings over a few days.
In the year that followed, Kenya experienced new beginnings, a new constitution, new governance, and new challenges. The Kenya Red Cross Society introduced Emergency Medical Services E+, providing professional, accessible, and high-quality pre-hospital care across the country. It also launched the Emergency Operations Center, revolutionizing coordination and logistics in times of crisis. In 2013, as President Uhuru Kenyatta assumed office and became patron of the society, and Mohamed Said as governor, terror struck Nairobi. Gunmen attacked the Westgate shopping mall, killing 67 people and injuring many more. Kenya Red Cross Society teams were among the first responders, saving lives, tracing the missing, and providing trauma counseling to survivors and families. The following year saw a wave of ethnic and terrorist violence from Moyale to Mandera, from Lamu to Nairobi. Communities were displaced and lives lost, but the Kenya Red Cross Society remained steadfast, offering emergency care, shelter, and psychosocial support wherever needed. April 2015 brought another moment of national grief. Gunmen attacked Garissa University College, killing 148 students. The Kenya Red Cross Society led the recovery efforts, comforting grieving families and supporting survivors.
We have managed as an organization to have teams on ground through at least ensuring that the teams have the necessary skills and equipment to pre-position in the high-risk areas. And through our Emergency Operations Center, we have managed to identify the early warnings and ensure that we put our teams on standby, ready for quick activation. And this has helped very much because we have managed to reduce the response time where we have boots on ground in a timely manner, especially on the sudden mass casualty incidents which result to large number of injuries like the Garissa University attack and other terror incidents, where our teams move in very quickly and they manage to offer the necessary first aid on the ground even before we start now evacuating.
In 2019, Francis Masika assumed the role of governor just as the world came to a halt during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Kenya Red Cross Society stepped forward, delivering relief, promoting health awareness, and spreading hope. As climate change brought new challenges, floods, drought, and displacement, the organization adapted and remained a lifeline for millions. 2019 was also the year Dusit D2 Hotel in Nairobi was attacked by suicide bombers, with 23 people dead. At the end of a protracted siege, Kenya Red Cross Society was on hand to help. In 2020, as the world came to a standstill, a new chapter began. Dr. Asha Mohammed took office as Secretary General just as COVID-19 swept across nations. Her team rose to the challenge, launching nationwide awareness campaigns, vaccination drives, and hygiene programs that reached millions. But even as the pandemic raged, another silent disaster unfolded. The worst desert locust invasion in 70 years devastated farmlands and livelihoods. Kenya Red Cross Society volunteers stood shoulder to shoulder with farmers, tracking swarms, distributing food aid, and restoring hope in the face of despair.
This is one situation that impacted everyone, and it found us in a situation where we not only had to think about, the communities and the people we were serving, but to think about the staff and volunteers of the Red Cross who would have to go out there and get exposed.
By 2021, drought returned, and through the Drought Emergency Appeal, the Society delivered life-saving food, clean water, and cash assistance across the arid lands of Kenya. In 2022, Kenya entered a new political era with the election of President William Ruto, who became patron of the society, with Geoffrey Korir serving as governor of the society. A year later, leadership transitioned once again. Dr. Ahmed Idris took over as Secretary General, ushering in a bold new era of digital transformation, innovation, and youth engagement.
Our youth program and our Young Red Crossers program, how to attract very young people at the young ages to become members of the Red Cross clubs, grow them through the various levels, and to have them continue volunteering and providing services to their communities. That is the future of the organization.
Under his leadership, the Kenya Red Cross Society teams led national responses to the 2023 El Nino floods, the Mai Mahiu tragedy, and the Embakasi gas explosion of 2024, rescuing survivors, reuniting families, and restoring hope to more than 139,000 households. When tragedy struck again at the hillside in Darasha Academy, where a fire claimed 21 young lives, Kenya Red Cross Society teams were there once more, offering medical aid, psychosocial support, and family tracing. From 2023, when the Shakahola mass graves was discovered, associated with the cultic Doomsday's Christian splinter group, Kenya Red Cross Society participated in the exhumation of bodies, tracing of families, and counseling the survivors. During the March-May 2024 rains, over 24,000 households were affected, thousands displaced, and farmlands submerged. Yet, through every storm, they stood firm, building resilience, not just relief, mapping risks, training first responders, and nurturing communities. From nutrition programs in Western Kenya to HIV and AIDS outreach, reaching over 400,000 people, to drought-tolerant farming, empowering families, the Kenya Red Cross Society continues to turn compassion into action. In 2024, amid youth protests and again during the 2025 commemoration, Kenya Red Cross Society provided first aid and emergency response to both protesters and police, upholding its neutrality and commitment to humanity.
The idea of centering our emergency operations around hubs, 14 hubs or so, is designed to get our work closer to the communities and to ensure that our logistics base that is the heart of the emergency response system is closer to the communities. So we are committed to making that investment over the next 3 years, and we hope at the peak of when we've achieved that level of investment, we will be spending less time on mobilizing our support to communities. We will have better planning mechanisms with the communities because we will be closer to them at a technical level. We're already close to communities because we're the most decentralized institution through our branches. But I think the future of this organization includes decentralizing technical capacities, assets and resources, and that is what the hub is meant to do.
Today, under the 2021-2025 strategic plan, the Society powers Kenya's early warnings for all initiatives driven by data, innovation and people. The Kenya Red Cross Training Institute continues to produce skilled paramedics and emergency technicians, the first to respond when disaster strikes.
The future of response is in use of technology to make our work easier. Drones and similar technology. There are spaces where we can deliver assistance directly to a person who is in need using drone technology. And the ones that right now we are prototyping and testing are solutions around how do we deliver supplies that are needed urgently and quickly, whether it is blood, whether it is antivenom, especially in the hard to reach areas, so that we are able to reach people.
For 60 years, through famine and flood, conflict and peace, pandemics and progress, the Kenya Red Cross Society has been Kenya's heartbeat, with ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
60 years of being always there, 60 years of being the first in, the last out. It's 60 years of selfless commitment by our volunteers throughout the country, because they have always been there when there is need.
Where there is suffering, there will always be a hand of hope. The Kenya Red Cross Society, always there.